So we were looking at the problem of particle in a box. Okay, a quantum particle in a box type potential. Okay. So what do I mean by box type potential? You have a potential equal to 0 between from x is equal to 0 to say x is equal to L, and then it is infinity before x equal to 0, and it is also infinity after x is equal to L. We solve the Schrodinger equation, especially the time independent Schrodinger equation. The time independent Schrodinger equation was solved, right? Time independent Schrodinger equation is also an eigenvalue problem. Okay, it's an eigenvalue problem. That is how the mathematicians will talk about these equations. So that was solved, and we got, after solving this eigenvalue problem, we got what is called as eigenfunctions, which we call as energy eigenfunctions, and each energy eigenfunction has a corresponding energy eigenvalues, so which are the values of energy that are allowed for the particle inside this box, or the box type potential. The eigenvalues were obtained. Okay, so let me rewrite the expression that we got after all the normalization. So we had, so I called it as phi. So let me be consistent. So phi suffix x is equal to square root of 2 by L. L is the length of the box. Then it was a sine function. So this is the value of the coefficient A, root of 2 by L. We got it from the normalization condition. And then we had n pi x by L, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. So this is what we obtained. In fact, I think I mean n pi by L is basically k. So if I just go back to the solution again, we had phi of x of the form a sine square root of 2me by h cut x. So this was the thing that we had, which if I call a sine k, so k is this entire thing which is here, so this I am calling it as k. And then when we apply the boundary condition, from boundary condition we have kx should be equal to n pi. Okay, then only the second boundary condition, that is that x is equal to L, the boundary condition at x is equal to L, boundary condition at x is equal to L. So kx, that is when x is equal to L, should be equal to n pi. So which will give that value of whatever we have defined as a k should be equal to n pi by L, n pi by L. So which when you substitute, okay, so that is how you get it as n pi by L into x. Okay, so this k is substituted here back, so that will give you, and that depends on n, so I can write it like this. Now what is k? K is basically called the wave vector, okay, which is related with momentum. So where k is 2 pi by lambda. Basically it tells you how the phase changes with the length. Okay, so rate of change of phase, so that's why it's called phase constant, rate of change of phase with respect to x. So you can find out the momentum from it, because momentum is related with lambda. Okay, so you can write it as lambda is basically h by p, so you can write that is k is equal to 2 pi, and what is lambda? H by p, or you can write it as h by p, you can write it as h cross, so you can write like this. So therefore momentum p is basically h cross k, and that is equal to, what is k? You substitute h cross into n pi by l. Okay, so you can see the value of momentum it will take is only discrete values that are allowed, which is given by h cross pi by l, n h cross pi by l. So these are the allowed momentum values. Similarly, we had energy. So you take the original definition also, k is equal to square root of 2me by h cut, and so that should be equal to n pi by l. So by squaring this, so that will give 2me by h cut square is equal to n square pi square by l square, or you can say En. Okay, so energy depends on n, whatever is the value n take. So n takes values 1, 2, 3, etc. So there are infinite solutions, there are infinite number of eigenfunctions and infinite number of eigenvalues correspondingly. So that is equal to n square pi square h cut square divided by 2 m l square. Okay, so this is of the value of energy. So now if you consider a potential well, okay, you can also call it as potential well, because its electron is basically confined in by the infinite walls, so it is like a well of infinite depth. Okay, so electron is confined inside it. Its wave function we have found out. What are the possible wave function if the electron value the energy value is a particular, then correspondingly there is a wave function. So let us take a well of some dimension, say if L is equal to say 5 nanometer, or let's say 5 Armstrong. Okay, so this is a problem which is worked out in the book. L is equal to 5 Armstrong. So you just see what is the energy values that it will take for different values of n. So En is equal to like all this constant value you need to substitute. So that will be n square into pi square is 3.14 whole square, then h cut square. H cut is basically 1.054 into 10 raised to minus 34 the whole square. So h is basically 6.625 into 10 raised to minus 34, and h cut is basically h by 2 pi, which is h by 6.28. so if you do this, you can see it will come to this. Okay, so we need then divide this by, so suppose if you take the particle as electron, okay, so for electron in a potential well, 1D potential, okay, this is a 1D potential well for electron in a potential well with L equal to 5 Armstrong. So electron mass is known to us, so 2 into 9.1 into 10 raised to minus 31 kilo into 5 Armstrong, okay, so that is square of 5 Armstrong, so 5 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter, so everything is in SI unit, 5 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter the whole square. Okay, so if you put every quantity that is appearing in this expression, h cut square in SI unit, this the unit is joule second, so this is also joule second, and length I am taking it in meter, mass in kilogram. This is how the standard SI unit, which is the most easier unit to work with, and if you do so, the result that we will get will be in joules. Okay, so if you calculate it, so you will get it as n square into 2.41 into 10 raised to minus 19 joules. So this is what you will get. So it depends on n. So now if you substitute if n is equal to 1, so n is equal to 1 square is so we will get E1 as basically 2.41 into 10 raised to minus 19 joules. So this is a joule is basically a very big unit. So if you express energy in terms of joules, we will have always a a factor like of the order of 10 raised to minus 19. So which is really inconvenient because the electron energy of electron inside the atoms or the semiconductor is of the order of 10 raised to minus 19. So we need to carry around this factor of 10 raised to minus 19 all the time. So so instead of using joules, it is more convenient if you divide this with the charge of the electron, okay, the magnitude of the charge of the electron, which is basically 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. So I hope everybody knows that the charge of electron is this, and the resulting expression, so that is called this is another unit of energy, which is called electron volt. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is 1 electron volt is equal to this is the conversion, okay, from electron volt to joules. If you want to convert, you have to multiply with 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 that many joules. So the advantage is that we can just factor out this 10 raised to minus 19, and we will get a number which is more convenient to represent. So this will be how much? This will be 1.51 electron volt. So this is more easy to say. The energy of electron, in the eigenstate. So what is the eigenstate here? So eigenstate is phi1 of x, and that is 2 by L. L is basically 5 Armstrong, which is minus 10 into and the length also, it may be more convenient to express everything in nanometer, so that also we can do. So if I express 5 Armstrong in nanometer, I will express the length in nanometer. So that will be 5 Angstrom means 0.5 nanometer. 2 by 0.5 nanometer. Then sine of so if this is the energy, then I can find out the corresponding K. So K was what? K, if you look at, we have defined it as square root of 2me by h squared. So you can substitute that energy that we obtained, and then we can evaluate the corresponding K1, or we can use the expression for K which we obtained as K is equal to n pi by L. Okay, so this also is another way of writing. So n pi by L, where n is 1, so you can say pi by if I write it in nanometer, n is 1, pi by L, L is 0.5 nanometer, and x, okay, so where x is also in nanometer. So nanometer will cancel. So this is the corresponding eigenfunction. Okay, so this is the eigenfunction. You can write it as 2 pi, right? So this is equal to, so dividing by 0.5 is multiplying by 2, so this will be 2 sine 2 pi x. Okay, so this is the eigenfunction, where eigenenergy is 1.51 electron volt. So let us plot this eigenfunction. Okay, let me find out two more such eigenfunction and eigenvalue. So let's go to the second eigenvalue. So n equal to 2. For n is equal to 2, we have E2. So all that you need to do is you should write 2 square multiplying the earlier value of energy, which was basically 1.51 electron volt. So this will be 4 times. So this gives this will be given us 6.04 electron volt. And what is phi 2? So phi 2 is again square root of 2 by L, so that will be 2, and sine, and what is K2? So K2 is basically 2 n pi by L, which is 0.5 into x. Okay, so this is going to be our second eigenfunction, and the corresponding eigenvalue is 6.04. So you can also write it as 2 sine 4 pi x. Okay, one more let us take. N is equal to 3. N is equal to 3. You have E3 is equal to 3 square. Okay, n square into 1.51 electron volt. So 3 square means it is 9. So 9 multiplied by 1.5, that will be 1.51. So that will be around 13.59. So if you calculate, I am writing it from the book. Okay, so 3 square into 1.51 electron volt. So 13.59 electron volt. Okay, and correspondingly your phi 3 is going to be 2 sine, you will have 3 pi by 0.5 x, which is equal to 2 sine, so that is 3 into 6 pi x. Okay, so let's now plot these and see how these things are looking like. So we have a distance for the well, or a width for the well, which is x0 to L, and we have infinite potential at x equal to 0 and below. So this is where we have infinite potential. Okay, so V is equal to infinity, V equal to infinity, so to both sides. Now the energies, if you look at okay, so since this is okay, so let me just plot the energies. Let me just show the energies. So here I am just showing the energy level. So this, suppose this is so this is E equal to 0. So first energy that we got is 1.5. So let me okay, so 2, say 4, 6, 8. I'm writing the energy units in electron volt. Then so the here L is equal to 0.5 nanometer, then 10, 12, then 14. So we have only 3 energy level. So if I want to show the energy levels, the first energy level is 1.51 electron volt, so which is somewhere so this is 1.5 is somewhere here. Okay, so this is the energy level of the first electron. And the wave function, if I show with respect to x for this, so our expression is basically sine 2 pi x, 2 into sine 2 pi x. So sine 2 pi x, if I draw up to a length of 0.5, so let me just write once again here. So phi 1 of x is equal to 2 sine 2 pi x. So when x is equal to 0.5, you have sine pi, so it will go to 0, and x equal to 0 also it will be 0, and when x is equal to 0.4, so that is here, so this is the middle point. So sorry, not 0.4, it is 1 by 4. Okay, so 1 by 4 nanometer, so this is 1 by 2 nanometer. So at 1 by 4 nanometer, what will have, if x is equal to 1 by 4, then it will be sine pi by 2, that will be the maximum, and where you will have an amplitude of 2. So if I draw this, you will have something like this. Okay, so it's like a half period of a sine wave. Okay, so that is so this height is basically 2. Okay. Next one, where is the next energy? At n equal to 2, we got so the first energy, I say it is 1.51 electron volt. The next energy is going to be 6.04. So it is somewhere here. Okay, so that is 6.04 electron volt. Okay, now if I, and what is our phi 2? So phi 2 was phi 2 of x was basically 2 sine 4 pi x. So it has double the frequency of the first wave. So if I draw like this, let me use a different color. So again it has amplitude too. Okay, it also has amplitude too, but frequency is double. So that is how the second eigenfunction will look like. So then comes the third. The energy was obtained as 13.59. 13 is here, 13.5 somewhere here. Okay, so that is 13.59 electron volt. So this energy axis is in electron volt. Okay, so vertical direction we are taking energy, and here while plotting the wave functions I am taking it as the position. Okay, 0 to L x variation. Now for the third one, my wave function is by 3 of x, that is sine 2 sine 6 pi x. That's what we got. So that was 3 half cycles if you look at, and therefore you can draw it as so divide it into 3 equal parts and then draw 3 half cycle like this. Okay, so this way it goes on. Okay, so you have so many solutions. This is almost like a guitar string vibrations. So if you look at the guitar string fundamental modes of vibration, there we call it as each solution has different modes. Okay, fundamental and then the harmonics, first harmonic, second harmonic, etc. Okay, so now this is how the solutions look like. Okay, but as I said, the wave function in itself doesn't have much meaning. So what is more meaningful is to talk about the probability density, which is basically the square of these wave functions. So let me just shift these things. Shift these things to the left. Then so I am just putting these expressions on the top of this. Okay, and then I am just creating a space here just to draw the modulus square. So again I am taking a new axis. Okay. So I am just repeating this. X is equal to 0 to x is equal to say half nanometer. You have the infinite potential here. So all I am going to do is basically take the probability density function. So the first one, the energy is here, second one the energy is somewhere here, the third one the energy is somewhere here. So you can see that the gap is increasing as n is increasing. So from 1 to 2, if you look at the gap, so that is around some less than 5 electron volt, but from 2 to 3 it is more separate. Okay, I think I should bring this little more down. Okay, So the gap is also increasing as you go higher and higher energy. Now if I square this sign, what will I get? I will get a positive quantity everywhere. So it will have the maximum amplitude which will creep up like this. It will be something like this. And same thing I can do with the second. So what is this? This is basically a plot of phi 1 of x modulus square. Here it is a real quantity, so even if you just square it, that is enough. Okay. So next quantity. So the height will be what? Height will be 4. Then if I square this thing, you will have basically again the height will go to 4. It will be something like this. So negative will become positive after squaring. So that will be the second function modulus square. The third function will be similar. Again the height will go to same extent. Now this has some physical connection. Okay, so what we say is that if the electron is having energy equal to E1, that is, this is our E1, 1.05 electron volt, and this is E2, which is 6.04 electron volt, and E3, so this is E3 and this is 13.59 electron volt. So if the electron is having this energy, then how is the electron, or where is the electron? If you ask, you can only talk about the probability density. So what you are seeing here in the third graph is basically this graph. So this is the wave function, position part of the wave function. Okay, and this is the probability density. Okay, so which tells you what is the probability of finding an electron at a particular position. For example, if the electron is having energy 6.04 electron volt, then the probability of finding that electron at L by 2 is 0. That electron will never be found there, because there the probability density function is 0. But if the electron is sitting at having energy 1.05 electron volt, then the probability of finding electron at that point will be maximum. Okay, so that's what we need to know. So what is the probability of finding electron from this point to this point? You have to basically integrate this, and when you integrate this, you will see that it will be 1. All this expression, if you integrate and find the area, this will be the total probability of finding electron anywhere from 0 to L, and that will be 1, and that you can see that. So this will be 4 here, and this will be 4, and if you integrate from x equal to 0 to x equal to half, then you will see that this area which is inside will be equal to 1. Okay, so this area will be 1. So that is the normalization condition which I introduced yesterday, by which we found the value of A. So all this wave function modulus square, if you integrate, you will get unity. So that is how we found the value of A as square root of 2 by L. okay, from the normalization condition. So what is the conclusion here? So electron cannot take any energy, it has to take any one of energy, that is E1, E2, E3, any of this. So it cannot take an energy, say 5 electron volt. So when you put an electron in a box and confine it, it is not possible to give any energy to that electron, it will not take. So the only permissible energies are E1, E2, E3, etc. Nothing in between. Okay, so energy is quantized, we say. So this is a very important feature in quantum mechanics. So as a conclusion, let us write, so when you confine, putting in a box is like confine. When you confine a quantum particle inside, when you confine a quantum particle inside a box, the energy that the energy that can be taken by the particle is discretized. Okay, so it can only take discrete certain finite energies, it cannot take anything in between. So when you confine a quantum particle inside a box, the energy that it can take is discretized. So let me just, it can take is discretized. Okay, so this is what is called quantization. Okay, so this is an example of quantization. So the word quantum mechanics comes from this property, quantization of energy. It cannot take any other values, but classically, if you put a ball in a box, the ball can be given any value of energy. It can give 1 electron volt, 1.5 electron volt, any such energy, but which is not really true. That picture is not really true. We tend to feel like that it can be given any energy, because the energy that we try to give to the balls are so small, are so large with respect to these differences in this energy. So therefore we never experience this quantization in daily life. But when you go to the microscopic world, these objects, these particles, so they have these constraints. So without knowing or taking into account of these constraints, you can't explain the properties of the material, and that is the reason why we are looking at these aspects in this course. So all right, so that is one interesting problem, and then and a simple problem. Okay, simple enough, but it is very profound, because it gives lot of features of quantum mechanics. And if an electron is sitting with a particular energy, say E1, so it can only take E1 or E2 or E3. But if it is sitting with an energy E1, then its probability distribution is given by the phi1 square, as it is shown here. If it is sitting in E2, its distribution is given by phi2 square. So same thing is coming with atom also. So when you look at an atom, you have different orbitals which are basically solutions of Schrodinger equations. So just like phi1, phi2 I have written here. So this kind of, but that will be a 3D solution. Okay, and we call those solutions as orbitals. Orbitals are nothing but the solutions of Schrodinger equation for the atomic potential. Okay, here the potential is very simple, 0 to L it is 0, outside it is infinity. But in an atom it is a more central potential in a 3D space. So therefore the solution of the Schrodinger equation become very it takes maybe many hours to derive the result. And Schrodinger, when he after he discovered the Schrodinger equation, he solved that for one electron atom, which is hydrogen atom. Okay, and he published it, and it matched with all the experimental result which was available then, and that is how his equation was recognized, and everybody then started believing, okay, that the mechanics in the microscopic world is actually decided by the Schrodinger equation. So then people started using Schrodinger equation to solve many other problems. But the thing is that as you take more complicated v of x or potentials, for simple potentials you can solve it, but when the potential becomes slightly more complicated, solving the differential equation become very, very tedious. So the number of problems that you can solve are very limited, okay, by analytic methods. So people, what is usually they do is basically they go for a numerical method. That means they use computers to solve this. But let us look at one more problem which we can solve, that is by that is the case of a step potential. Okay, step potential. So what do I mean by step potential? It is basically again a 1D problem. So this is say x direction, and so you have a step, just like a unit step function, same thing. Okay. So this is a unit step function. So this is like v of x, I am plotting. So v of x is 0 at before x is equal to 0, and it is equal to 1 or say v0. It step up to v0, so you can write v of x as v0 u of t. Okay, this way you can write. So this is the type of potential, and the problem is what? The problem is that an electron is coming from minus infinity. Okay, like this. Electron is coming from minus infinity, and then it will come to the point x equal to 0, and we would like to know what happens to that electron. So normally if you have energy for the electron which is smaller than the barrier, then there is no way the electron can go to the right side. Okay, so it will be bounced back. Okay, but if electron has wave nature, then what should be expected? So we need to solve the Schrodinger equation again. So if you look at this potential, there are two regions. One is to the left of x, so this is region 1, and then you have region 2. So we can write the Schrodinger equation for region 1 and region 2. So Schrodinger equation for region 1. So region 1, what is happening? The potential is 0. Okay, it's like almost like a free particle. So we can write the Schrodinger equation as minus h cut square. So by Schrodinger equation, I am only talking about time independent Schrodinger equation. So because that is what we need to solve to get energy eigenvalues and energy eigenfunctions. And once you get energy eigenvalues and functions, then it is just multiplication with a known function, which is just adding phase to the wave function. Okay, so that that is trivial. But what is more interesting, or what is more required to solve, is basically the time independent Schrodinger equation. So h cut square by 2m, and then dou square by or I can write d square, because x is the only variable. Then I will call the wave function in this region as phi of x is equal to e psi. So h psi is equal to e psi. So that is our this is the time independent Schrodinger. H psi is equal to e psi. Okay, psi is a function of x called eigenfunction. E is the eigenvalue. So it's an eigenvalue problem, and since potential is 0, I am not having here the second term for in H. It is only having one. Now for region 2, in region 2, what I will have is basically minus square by 2m d square by dx square, then psi of x, plus we have a v0 which is constant into, so it's not a function of x, it's a constant. Okay, so this is the region where x is less than 0, and this is where x greater than or equal to 0. So 0 plus and 0. Then okay, so this is psi of x is equal to e psi of x. So this is the for region 2. Okay, that is simply it is x greater than 0. Okay, so let me just write x greater than 0, and this is x less than 0. Okay, at x equal to 0, it is stepping up, the potential is stepping up. So this is what we have. So Schrodinger equation has two forms, one in region 1, one in region 2. Now what could be the solution? Now if I take so the equation 1 basically is d square by dx square psi of x then plus 2me 2me by h cut the whole square psi of x, and region 2 we will have d square by dx square psi of x plus so I am assuming the case where V0 is greater than E, energy of the electron. So energy of the coming electron which is going to come to this barrier wall is basically lesser than the potential of the barrier. So if it is lesser than the potential of the barrier, then what I should do is I should write it as 2m into V0 minus E square root of h cut. Okay, but now I have to put a minus sign. Okay, into psi of x equal to 0. So this is also equal to 0. So this will be the way in which we will have. Okay, in region 1 we have a plus sign. In region 2 we have minus sign here, because I have since V0 is greater, I have written it as V0 minus E. So if you square it up, you can see that 2m into V0 minus E, and then if you take the minus sign inside, it will be E minus V0, and E minus V0 is what you will get if you take the E term, this term to the left. So that will have e minus sign, then multiplying with minus sign throughout. So then v0 will have minus signs, and same thing. So it's just a rewriting of this equation. Now what I'll do is I will define this quantity as so this quantity I will define as k1, and this quantity inside the bracket. Okay, so together it will be k1 square, and then this will be k2 square. So I can now have a shorthand so way of writing. So d square by d square psi of x plus k1 square. We can take alpha, beta, whatever way, but since I know that k is related with propagation constant, so that's why I am using k1 and k2. So for region 1, it is the equation after the substitution of k1 and k2, and similarly d square by dx square plus, not plus, it is minus k2 square. Now we have this equation. What is the solution of this equation? So what is the solution of this equation? So how to solve this equation? So for region 1 we have one equation, region 2 we have another one. So what is the trial solution that we can take? So if you are familiar with this type of equation, already the first equation we have already encountered, but second equation we have not done with minus sign. But first equation we know that we can write the solution as a e raised to j k1 x. Okay, so this is corresponding to the right propagating wave, plus b e raised to minus j k1x. So this way you can take the solution. So this is known to us. That's a very common case which we encountered even in particle in a box. There also potential was 0, so we had that case. So this is phi of x in region 1. Okay, so I will call like this. Then phi of x in region 2, I can put a region 2 here. Okay, so in region 2 we will have so here what is the difference? So if you try to solve this equation, what is going to be the answer is basically some another constant c e raised to minus k2 x plus d e raised to plus k2x. Okay, so you can see that for this particular equation, if you take any of this or this, it is a valid solution. But if j is there, it will not satisfy the cancellation. Okay, so by experience, you know, by seeing the differential equation, what is its solution. Okay, so these are simple cases, very well known cases. Okay, but already you have encountered the first case, but second case I have not so far mentioned, but it is very easy. Just plug in any of this e raised to minus k2x into this, take 2 times differentiation, you will get what? E raised to k2x, right? So that will cancel with e raised to k2x from here because it has a minus sign. Okay, but if it is plus, then you need the j in the exponential. Okay, then only the cancellation will happen, because j into j become minus 1. So minus will come with the derivative term, and that will cancel with the plus term here. Okay, the second time when you multiply j k1 into j k1, you will get minus k1 square. So that will cancel with plus k1 square. Whereas in the second case, when you take double derivative, it is minus into minus, the sign will become plus. So it will be plus k2 square, and that will cancel with the minus k2 square, which is already here. So that way both, and similar thing happens with plus k2x also, you can see that. Now we have 4 coefficients, and we need to determine the values. So what we do, like in the last case, we have to apply the boundary conditions. So this is basically mathematics. Once you write down the Schrodinger equation, the solution is basically a mathematical exercise. So to find, it has nothing to do with physics. Of course we are doing a physics problem, but what actually we are solving is a differential equation, which is entirely a mathematical problem. So to find the constants, there are four of them, we apply boundary conditions. Now boundary conditions, we need to know, we apply boundary conditions. So what are the boundary conditions? So number one boundary condition I can say is that the wave is actually coming from left side. Okay, so A is there. Now the wave can get reflected and then it can go back to minus infinity. Okay, it is coming from minus infinity, that is true, but after hitting at this point at x equal to 0, the barrier, it can be reflected, because wave has a property of reflection. So that reflected wave is what is the amplitude of the reflected wave is b. Okay, so both a and b are non-zero by the boundary condition. Now what about C and D? C is basically the wave that is exponentially decaying to the right side. Okay, this is exponentially decaying function. This is exponential. As x increases, what is happening? It is decaying. With increasing x, the amplitude is coming down. So which means that we have a decaying solution inside the barrier. Okay, the wave dies out as x goes to infinity, which is physically possible. Okay, because a wave can die out in amplitude as it goes to the right. Whereas if you look at this one, this is like exponentially growing. Exponentially growing means what? If this is true, if that part exists, what is going to happen is that you will have a growth like this exponentially, and as x goes, it goes to infinity, which is really unphysical. So there cannot be anything like that, and so we need to prevent that from happening, and therefore d should be set to 0. So we are just using a physical argument to say that d has to be 0, because we cannot allow exponential growth toward the right. Exponential decay is okay, but exponential growth is so d has to be 0. Okay, so let me do
Sir,
it. Yes,
can you explain the case 1 once more?
so d has to goes to 0, because this case 1 means you are talking about the phi 1.
Yes, sir, about the constants. Yes, sir.
A and B. Okay, so there is a particle which is coming. So this first part of the solution is basically, this is a right moving. This corresponds to right moving wave, which we have seen earlier also. The free particle solution also had a plus k1x and a minus k1x j, right? So this is left moving. You remember this? This is a,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So can we have right moving wave? Yes, because the particle is actually coming from minus infinity into the barrier. So there is of course a wave that is moving to the right. As the particle is moving from left to right, the wave is also moving from left to right. The wave that describes the particle is also moving from left to right. Now, can we have a left moving wave? To start with, we don't have a left moving wave, but once the particle hit here, okay, then there can be reflection of that wave, right? So it can, so classically speaking, it can come and bounce, right? So something like that, and after bouncing off, you can see a wave that will propagate to the left. So that is possible, right? If electron is a wave or a particle is a wave, then the wave after hitting on the barrier, there some part of it can be reflected, some part can even be transmitted also through the barrier. So
Yes, sir.
therefore B cannot be 0. That is my point. Physical argument I am using and say that B cannot be 0 because of reflection, possibility of reflection. A is 0 because of the incident, okay. So A is basically showing the incident wave. So this is incident wave. What about B? B is the reflected wave, the amplitude of the reflected wave, okay. So incident wave is right moving, reflected wave is left moving. Then the second part of the solution, we can have exponential decay as you go into the barrier, but exponential growth is cannot be permitted, because that will make everything very unphysical. That means the probability of finding the wave is infinite on the right inside the barrier, which is unphysical. So the only way of getting rid of that is by making d to 0. So now we have a more simplified problem. D is gone, so there are only 3 coefficients that we need to determine. So now let us proceed. Now, do you have a class right now? It may take a little more while, or we can continue in the next class, whatever way you want.
No, sir.
Okay, so we can continue for some more time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now I am coming into the boundary conditions. What is happening at x equal to 0? Okay, so at x is equal to 0, psi of 0 minus should be equal to psi of 0 plus, or I would say phi. That's what I have used. Phi of 0 minus should be equal to. So this is one boundary condition. So we have to know why. So this is because of the continuity of wave function should be continuous. Okay. So why we say that wave function should be continuous? Because you see, if you have a Schrodinger equation like this, okay, this is again just a general Schrodinger equation like this. Okay, now if the potential is finite, which is the case in this, if the potential is finite, then the second derivative, okay, so E is a constant which is finite, so this is finite. V of x is also finite in our problem. Okay, so it is just a mathematical argument. Okay, so V of x is, which is one term here, that is finite. E, which is the electron energy, that is also taken as finite. So therefore the third term in this equation should also be finite, right? Otherwise the equation cannot be made, right? If this is infinite, then and the other two cannot be finite. So if other two is finite, the third term should also be finite in the equation. Okay, so this should be finite. Now if the second derivative is finite, what can you say about the first derivative?
Finite, sir.
Okay, if the second derivative is finite, then the first derivative should be continuous, isn't it? Should be continuous. Do you agree to this? If the second derivative is finite, okay, the only way in which the first derivative, the only way in which the second derivative can be infinite. So basically the first derivative, you can think in this way, the first derivative is the integral of the second derivative. So if the second derivative is finite everywhere, when you integrate it, you will get a continuous function, right? You integrate a finite function, you will get a continuous function. Do you agree to
Yes,
that?
sir.
Yeah. Now, second point, so first derivative is finite. Now what about the magnitude of the first derivative? The magnitude of the first derivative should be finite, because it correspond to momentum of the particle. Magnitude of the first derivative should be finite because it corresponds to the momentum of the particle. If you remember, px, I said it is basically j h cut or minus j h cut dou by dou x. So if the momentum is finite, then first derivative should be finite. Agreed? Momentum, if energy is finite, momentum has to be finite.
Sir.
And therefore the first derivative should be finite. So therefore we can say that the first derivative is both continuous and finite. Therefore first derivative is both finite and continuous. Okay, so if it is finite, then I can say about psi of x, which is the integral of first derivative. Therefore psi of x should be continuous. Okay, if this is finite, then psi of x should be continuous. So first derivative finite means when I integrate a finite quantity, I will get a continuous. So psi of x should be continuous, and also I said the first derivative should also be continuous. So we have two condition that is coming out, psi of x. So therefore we have psi of x 0 minus, let me just write it as phi of 0 minus should be equal to phi of 0 plus, and so that is number one. And number two, I can also say that d by dt of psi of x at x is equal to 0 minus should be not d by dt, it should be d by dx, should be equal to d by dx of psi of x at x is equal to 0 plus. So we have two equations, three unknowns, and that's enough to get rid of two variables there. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So let's apply the first boundary condition, that is number one. So what is our psi of 0 minus? It is basically a into e raised to j k1x plus b into e raised to minus k1x. Okay, so that is on the left side. Now I have to substitute the value for x as 0. So put 0 here. I am applying the first boundary condition. So 0. Here also 0. And then on the right side I have c e raised to minus k2 into 0. Okay, so what is happening? So this is going to become as a plus b is equal to a plus b is equal to c. So that is the equation 1. Then second one, I have to first take the derivative. So when I take the derivative, I will get a into j k1. Then I put 0 for x. That's what it means. Take the derivative first and then put x equal to 0. Then b into minus j k1 into e raised to j k1 0 minus j k1 0 is equal to c into, here when I take derivative I will get minus k2 into e raised to minus k2 into 0. So what does this equation give? So this will give me equation 2, which I can write it as a jk1 plus b minus jk1 is equal to c minus k2. So that is equation 2. So I can solve for this equation 1 and equation 2. So what I do is I will now divide equation 1. Equation 1 I will divide it with a, and then I will get 1 plus b by a is equal to c by a, okay, which I will write it as 1 plus b by a, I will write it as small r, and c by a I will write it as t. Okay, so this is equation 3, and similarly equation 2 also I will divide it with a. So then I will have j, okay, jk1 minus jk1 b by a is what? B by a is r, is equal to c by a, that is so minus k2 c by a, so which is t. So which maybe I can write it as jk1 into 1 minus r is equal to minus k2 into t. Or let me just take this jk1 to the other side and write it as jk1. You can write like this, Now if I want, I can take this j and put it on the top, and it will become minus j. So minus minus will cancel. I can do maybe this way. So that is equation 4. Okay, so what I did, I took jk1 out, so it will become 1 minus r. So I am modifying the first equation by dividing it with a. So a will go, then b by a become r, c by a become t. Okay, so that is how I have here. And then I took jk1 common, and then it will be 1 minus r here. So now I can remove this bracket also. I don't need this bracket. So 1 minus r is that. So I have 1 plus r and 1 minus r. So immediately we can go ahead and find out equation 3 minus equation 4, or just cancel our 3 plus 4. Okay, 3 plus 4. If I do, I will get 2. Okay, minus r and plus r will cancel, and 2 is equal to 1 plus j k2 by k1 into t. Okay, so this is what we will get. Or I can say t is obtained as 2 by 1 plus j k2 by k1. Okay, so what is t? T is basically c by a. Now what is interesting to find out here is basically what is the probability that the electron will be found in the right side where x is greater than 0. So what are these a, b, c constants? so let me go back a little bit. So a is basically amplitude of right moving electron or particle. Okay, so particle could be anything. Right moving particle in region 1. What is b? B is the amplitude of left moving particle. Okay, left moving particle in region 1. And what is c? C is the amplitude of, you can't really say it is moving, or amplitude of the particle in region 2. Okay, this way you have to say. You cannot say moving. Okay, moving means there should be imaginary part in the wave function, but here you don't have imaginary part. It is just an exponentially decaying function. So you should say the amplitude of the particle. Amplitude of the particle means the wave, okay, associated with the particle in region 2. So now if you know the amplitude, then we can talk about the amplitude square, which is basically giving us the probability density. Okay, so therefore probability density of particle so the corresponding probability density will be the modulus square of each, right? So probability density of the right moving particle is modulus a square, left moving particle is modulus b square, and probability density so this. Okay, so what is modulus a square? This is basically a into a star, and then b square is basically b into b star, and then you have c into c star respectively. Okay, respectively means with respect to the definition I gave for A, B, C. So corresponding probability density of the particle are this. So respectively. Okay, so now what is the we can talk about flux of particle. Okay, probability density means what? It is the number of particle per unit volume. That's what we mean by probability density. So density is with respect to the position coordinate. So in 1D it is like per unit length, how much probability is there to find the particle there. So it's a number per unit length. Okay, in general it is unit volume, but in 1D problem it is per unit length. Okay, that's what we mean by density. So when you multiply it with dx, you get the actual probability. So in this particular case, here it is length, okay, per unit length. So flux of the particle is basically flux of the particle going right. Let's say flux of the particle going right is going to be modulus a square into the velocity, velocity of the incident particle. Okay, so that will be from left to right. So I will denote it as b incident. Now what will be this velocity of the particle which is going right? So that will be basically momentum by m. So where the incident velocity is going to be h, that means p incident momentum divided by m, which is basically what? In region 1 the momentum is basically h cross k1 by m. So that will be the momentum. So if I multiply the velocity with the probability density, I get basically the number of particle. So velocity has the dimension which is meter per second or length per time. So what I will get after multiplication? So probability density has number per unit length. Okay, so here if I look at the dimension analysis, so this is number per unit length. So that is multiplied with the length. Velocity is length per unit time, right? So length will cancel and number per unit time, that is what we call as flux. So how many particle is moving right in unit time? Okay, so you can put unit also here. So unit length by unit time. Okay, because it is dividing, so unit can cancel also. So if you put there, you can cancel this. So number per unit time. So that is what we call as flux. So that is given by this. Now similarly I can talk about flux of the particle going left. Flux of particle going left. Okay, so this is all in region 1. So this also in region 1. So that will be basically b square into the velocity in region 1. So this is velocity in region 1. Here also I am putting velocity in region 1. So in region 1 you have momentum divided by, so momentum is h cross k1, okay, in region 1. Okay, so that will be again the same velocity, okay, because that is just decided by k1 only, and k1 is same for both right moving and left moving in region 1. Okay, so so the reflection coefficient, so therefore we can talk about reflection coefficient R is equal to the flux which is going to the right, the flux which is going to the left divided by the flux which is going to the right. So this, since they are same, this is basically equal to B star divided by A star. You can write it as B by A into B by A the whole star, which is what? Which is basically equal to R into R star. But what I found is only T. Okay, but I can now find R. R is what? From the first equation I know that R is equal to 1 minus T. So I have T here, so I can find out R as 1 minus T. So let me just take this expression. Copy it. Okay, so therefore R is basically 1 minus T from equation 1, so which is equal to 1 minus 2 by 1 plus j k2 by k1. So if I solve this, take the LCM. So more than physics, this is just algebra. Okay, 1 plus, right? So this is 1 plus j minus 2 divided by 1 plus j k2 k1, which is equal to minus 1 minus j k2 by k1, right? So minus 1 and then plus j k2 by k1 divided by 1 plus j plus j k2 by k1. So this is what we get as R. So what is my reflection coefficient? So therefore R is equal to R star. R star. So you need a R star also. So R star is basically okay, so just substitute. R is basically this minus j k2 by k1 plus j k2 by k1 into conjugate of this. So there is minus 1 plus will come here, k2 by k1, and then in the denominator it will become 1 minus k2 by k1. Okay, so wherever j is there, if you take the conjugate, so j was in both numerator and denominator. So numerator it was minus, so I put plus here. Denominator it was plus, I put minus here. Now if you look at here, you see this term is exactly this. This term is exactly this. Minus into minus, so we get it as 1. What does that mean? It means that the particle is going to be completely reflected back. Okay, from the barrier, it will be completely reflected back, and therefore the reflection coefficient is 0. And similarly, we can find out transmission coefficient and transmission coefficient is basically 1 minus r, which is 1 minus 1, which is equal to 0. Okay, so no particle is going to be transmitted. Everything, the particle which is coming and incidenting, is going to be completely reflected. But the important thing is that, so this is what we expect classically. If there is a barrier which cannot be overcome by the particle, if the energy is lesser than that, then it will bounce back. Okay, so the quantum mechanics also says the same thing. But in addition to that, there is a finite probability of finding the particle in the region above x equal to 0. How do I say that? It is given by the wave function in that region square. Okay, so let me just write that also. So what is unphysical is basically, let me write it here. Okay. So the conclusion is this. Though the particle is fully reflected by the barrier, there exists a finite means non-zero, zero probability to find the particle beyond x is equal to 0. Because why? And that is in region 2, the wave function is basically some constant c into e raised to minus k to x. Okay, so if I take modulus of this whole square, so therefore probability density is equal to modulus c square into e raised to minus, when I square it, exponential will have minus 2k to x. So if I plot this probability density function, so this is the V0. Okay, so C cannot be 0, C is a non-zero quantity, and you will see that the wave function will decay like this to the right. Okay. Here on the left side, the magnitude of the wave function will be 1, or it will be constant rather than 1, it is constant, and that constant will depend upon the normalization, which we did not do. So here I will say it is constant, but at x is equal to 0 onwards, so there is a finite probability, and it goes to 0 at higher values of x. Okay, so this is the potential, and we are taking the case of so this is basically and this area has to be, area of this has to be unity. When you integrate from minus infinity to plus infinity, it has to go to infinity. So there are some problem in normalization because of the wide range, because it is minus infinity to x equal to 0, it is constant, and then it exponentially. But the point is that there is a finite probability of finding the particle. Now if you restrict it with an infinite well here, then you can normalize it easily. Okay. So the point is that there is a non-zero probability of finding the particle inside the barrier, which is classically forbidden. Okay. So this area here, this area in this region, so that is what is strange here. So there is a so this even there are practical application to this when the particle is a photon. This when they move through the optical fiber, so this is called evanescent tail or evanescent wave, and there are practical application to this for like making fiber optic sensor, etc. Okay, but it is the same principle. Here we are taking some matter particle that is just coming and incidentting at the barrier. Okay, so that's all for this particular problem. The next step is basically instead of the barrier extending to infinity like this, what will happen if you if you take a finite width for the barrier, okay, and this goes to 0 after some length. If it comes back to 0, then that is a more interesting problem, but solution to that problem analytically is very, very tedious, so I will not do this algebra there because it will just waste time in doing the algebra. Here it was much more easier to do, but for if you are interested, I can forward some videos where it shows the steps to do the algebra, but we will look at the final result, what will it be. So I would like to end here. If there are questions, you can ask.
I have it out in one of the parts, sir, that
Yeah.
you have taken for 1 plus r equals to t.
Yes.
So there you have written r equals to 1 minus t. That manipulation part I got little confused.
You are asking about this one or here?
So above, yes sir, this one.
The small r.
Yes,
Now
sir.
this small r is basically equation 1 I have rewritten. Equation 1 we got after applying the boundary condition, we got 1 plus r equal to t. Sorry, equation 3 it was. Okay, so that I should write it as equation 3. So from equation 3,
Sir, from equation 3, if 1 plus r equals to t, then to get 1 minus t, it should be minus r, sir.
oh, is it? Okay, let me just check. 1 plus r is t. So, oh, okay. So it should be t minus 1, right?
Yes, sir.
It should be r should be t minus 1. Yes. Oh, right. So there will be a minus sign here. So it will be just carried over. This minus sign will just be everywhere. So yeah. So this minus sign will be there, and you will get rid of the minus sign here. So that is even better. Yes. So now it's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
also for the cases that you have considered while drawing the diagram for case 1, sir. So can you please go with that?
Yeah. This one.
So the diagram part, sir.
Diagram. Or the first problem,
Yes, sir.
or
So equation 1 that you have taken for x, it should be greater than 0 or less than 0 or equal to 0. Sir.
oh yeah. The first one is less than 0. Yes, that's also an error. Yes, region 1 is
Yes.
x less than 0. Correct. You are right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.